Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video, and the three of us here sitting here in person at the Civic Center. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances, to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. So how are we going to proceed? Unlike when we have regular hearings, we vet the agendas. We actually just go in order. So we'll start at item number 18. We're actually going to start with item number 23, which is the last item, which was an item that was supposed to have been heard last hearing on July 22nd, but we lost connectivity and could not hear that item. So we'll go through the order listed, starting at item 23 and then going back to item 18. And where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with a presentation only if required. The committee may ask questions or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and Mr. Palmer, who's watching the clock, will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address when you start off, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning matters here. We don't deal with construction-related issues or foundations or personal issues between neighbors. The applicant or agent goes first, makes a presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. I note today that, and they also will have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. I note on some of the applications here this afternoon, we have a lot of registered speakers, and we'd ask, if possible, that speakers don't go over the same points that have been raised by previous speakers. When we're in person, we typically have a meeting outside among the opposition members, and they decide on who's going to speak. But in the virtual world, it looks like everyone's speaking, so we just ask that you not raise the same points that have been raised by previous speakers. After all speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers, respond to the concerns of the speakers, not to represent their position, and also have 5 minutes. But if in the case where there's 6 speakers and the applicant has to go through and respond to 6 speakers, I will use my discretion if necessary and allow more than 5 minutes for that to take place. Okay, are there any declarations of interest on the matters before us on this afternoon's agenda? No, by staff or members. Deferral requests. We'll deal with deferral requests. I believe there is one deferral request on this afternoon's agenda. And I believe that is item number 20, A, B, and C. 1830th. 1830th Street. We have the agent Roland Rom Kolthoff, and we have also registered to speak 2 representatives of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, Judy Gibson and Ron Jameson. So let's, can we go to the agent, please? Ronald Rom Kolthoff.
He has not registered, and we've tried emailing him, and he hasn't responded.
Okay,
And he's not
so-
present on our list.
And we do, so how do we know about this request for, does he think that he automatically would get it? This is an application. I note that perhaps he's asking deferral because he's seen that the Long Branch Association is opposed, that planning is recommending refusal. This is for a severance and a pair of semis with deficient frontages. So what do we do?
So
We hold
what
it down,
happened
or-
is he attempted to submit materials that were past the deadline. We advised him that it would not be included in the agenda for the members because it was late. And he subsequently requested that the application be deferred because he wanted to include the supporting material. And he was advised that he had to participate in the virtual hearing, and we have not heard back.
So, what does everyone think? We should hold it down perhaps and see if he didn't pre-register, is he even able to?
Well, we've sent him the information on how to do it.
I see.
I'm not sure why he's chosen not
And that
to.
would have been for 1 p.m. It's already now 1:15, so
Correct.
should we stand it down till the end of the afternoon session?
And we'll
or-
try emailing him again
Okay.
to see what's happening.
Okay, so that's the only deferral request. So I guess the first application we're going to deal with is item number 23. The reason we're going out of order, this is an application was supposed to have been heard at the last hearing, but was unable to be dealt with due to connectivity issues. So just bear with me for a second. Okay, so the application is 67 Harding Avenue. I believe we have only registered as a speaker the agent Ida Evangelista. This is for a severance, build 2 detached lots. We have so 2 new detached dwellings with various variances. And we have conditions requested by Forestry and the Development Engineering. Forestry is recommending refusal. Planning had concerns and is now okay with the application. Is Mrs. Evangelista there?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Forestry is recommending refuse. Good afternoon. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 67 Harding.
Right.
And-
Is it Forestry looking for, either a permit to injure or alternatively a denial, or vice versa?
We're not. It's just a permit to injure. We're not removing any trees.
Okay.
There are 2 trees at the front, and they're both on private property, and it's just a permit to injure.
Okay.
So the forestry comments indicate
Oh.
Urban Forestry requests that the Committee of Adjustment panel deny the consent to sever and the variances that would lead to 2 proposed new driveways due to the planned tree, cancellation of a planned city tree, and permanent loss of viable planting space.
And they have alternative.
We currently have. Wow. we currently have trees on the front of the property. There is more than enough room to plant city trees on the boulevard, because there is a boulevard there. There's the sidewalk and then the boulevard, which is typically where they do plant their trees. So there is more than enough space to plant their trees. So I respectfully submit that I disagree with their comments. We do not have any landscaping issues. We don't have any landscaping variances. We're not going to conflict with the trees that are there currently. There is more than enough space to plant any new trees that should the city deem necessary. And I respectfully submit that.
Okay, so it's usually in the alternative, Mrs. Evangelista, so they ask for a denial, which, because you're building on, but I don't know which trees or how big, how many centimeters, but as an alternative, it's a permit to injure and work out something where they may ask for additional plantings. I'm sure your homeowners are going to want to put landscaping on their lots in any event. So I guess that would be sort of in the alternative. I don't think committee members typically turn down severance applications because of a request from Urban Forestry for a denial.
Right, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Okay.
So there is plenty of space, and we're in acceptance of their conditions.
Yes. Anyway, and planning is okay with this. So rather than have a presentation, perhaps let's just see if committee members have any questions for you. So we're proposed a pair of semis. There are variances associated with it. Planning is okay with the application. So any questions for Mrs. Evangelista?
I have a couple questions related more to the variances, I guess, but they result from the severances. You've got a frontage that's almost half of what the bylaw allows, and an area which is about half of what the bylaw allows. So I need a justification for this request for those variances, which result from the consent.
So this is an area that's undergone a transition over the last several years, where many lots have been severed into two lots of same size, undersized 7.62, with lot areas approximately the same of what we're proposing, some even slightly smaller. You'll see in the area we have 22, 24, 40, 42, 48, 50. It's an urban area, 68 and 70, 72, 74. There are many homes, many lots in this neighborhood. It's an urban area. There's an eclectic mix. We have townhouses across the street. We have apartment buildings on each corner. So that's the direction that this particular neighborhood is moving towards. It's been ongoing for the last several years, probably about 6-7 years. And what we are proposing meets and fits the character, the lot size and built form. It's consistent with what exists in the neighborhood. I do not feel that this would cause any unacceptable adverse impacts, as we are just doing exactly what's here. So it is characteristic to the neighborhood.
Okay, so notwithstanding the fact that the frontage requires 15 meters, there's been a lot of redevelopment and consents and severances that create smaller lots. You're saying these lots, and we see that planning has no objection. These lots are now conform to the prevailing character of what has been ongoing the last 6-7 years. That's your position.
That's correct,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Okay, is someone ready to make a motion? And we have the typical engineering conditions in the event of on consents and severances, and we have forestry.
We are
the permit
in
to injure a
acceptance
tree.
of all conditions.
Sorry?
Yes, to forestry, and we are in acceptance of all conditions put forward from engineering, construction services, and forestry.
Thank you.
And we have no opposition from neighbors.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I find the proposal to be in keeping with the emerging character of this street, as articulated by the agent. And I recommend approval firstly of the consent, subject to the standard conditions of consent. And with respect to the variances, I find them to be minor and in nature and necessary to accommodate developing reasonably sized houses on small lots. And I move approval of the 2 minor variance applications subject to urban forestry condition number 1 and the engineering and construction services condition.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. A seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion.
Well said. I'll second it.
Okay, Michie had her hand up also. So, all in favor? Okay, you have your unanimous approval of your consent and variances. Thank you,
Thank you
Mrs.
very much,
Evangelista.
Mr. Chair. Have a nice day.
You too,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 18, 27 Edge Hill Road. It's yet another application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 4 variances. TRCA has no objection. We have neighbors in support, including the neighbor at 25. And planning is requesting as a condition of approval, in the event of approval, that it be built substantially in accordance with the site plan. And we have 1 speaker registered, being the agent, Joe Dome. Mr. Dome, are you with us?
Yes, I'm hearing a bit of feedback. I think coming from your end.
Okay. You sound okay to us.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I've just outlined what you're seeking to do here in terms of your variances. Would you like to, committee members, would you like a short presentation or just have some questions for Mr. Dome? And we have quite a bit of support, including the next door neighbor. I noted. Any questions for Mr. Dome, or is someone ready to make a motion?
We're getting a lot of background noise. It sounds like you're building something, so if you could just not
Better
do
not be
that.
the house.
Yeah, it's not coming from my end here. I also hear it as well.
Quiet now.
Okay, it seems to be better.
Yeah, okay. So the region TRCA is okay with this. I see. No objections. Any questions for Mr. Dome, or is someone ready to make a motion? And Mr. Dome, you're okay with the planning condition to be built substantially in accordance with the site plan, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. It's noted that there's lots of support from within the immediate neighborhood, and I move approval, subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2, and the planning condition.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval, Mr. Dome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, our next application is item 1932 VASSAR Drive. It's an application for yet another new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 4 variances, including an increase in the FSI. Planning is recommending refusal of the application. There is a lot of opposition. We have some very well-written and well-researched letters of objection from, particularly noted, the neighbors at 30 and 34, who are the most directly affected, who've given us very comprehensive letters of objection with statistics. stating that the typical is 0.57, and here they're looking for 0.69. There's also a coverage. And urban forestry is requesting conditions 1 and 2, and we are hearing some background noises.
Yeah, it might come from my side,
So we have various registered speakers. We have 4 neighbors, sorry, yeah, no more. The next page too, 6 neighbors registered. Who all reside on VASSAR or Lloyd Manor Road. We have Samu, the agent, who will, I guess, start off by giving us a brief presentation of what you want to do here in light of all the opposition, including the planning memo. Mr. Wu, are you there?
yeah, I'm here. My name is Tim Wu, and I'm from-
Is there some feedback or some things going on, and we're hearing some noises, and I think you're the only one connected?
yeah. It's my computer. It's a little bit problem with the fans. Very hot.
We can't hear you well. During sound check, everything was fine. So
Yeah.
if you could restore whatever you were doing previously.
I don't know if that. No, it's
Do you also have YouTube running?
no. I don't know.
Are you on a speaker? Because we're having trouble hearing you. Maybe you can try being closer to the microphone and speaking more clearly.
No, I'm on the microphone of my computer and laptop. So, can you hear me clearly?
Okay, so sir, you've seen the planning memo and you've seen all the letters of opposition,
Yes.
which are
we
very
saw it.
well researched. So there's a problem with your coverage
Yeah,
and with your floor space index. And planning is
Yeah,
recommending
the-
refusal. So please give us a presentation of why we should support and approve your application, sir.
the owner is willing to talk to the neighbors about issues, but during the epidemic, hard to connect with them. So we are proposed to defer, so we can connect with the neighbors and revise our design and come back.
Sir, are you typing at the same time you're talking?
No, I'm not.
We hear like you're hitting the keys. But anyway, this memo is dated May the 28th. Sometimes the memos from planning come out like a day before. So you've had this memo for a long time, planning recommending that the application be refused.
Yes, but we just get the neighbors subject to letter in this month.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, the neighbors just submitted the objection letters in the recently.
Yeah, okay. Some of the letters from the neighbors are recent because they would have just they have to be because they didn't get this application in May. They only got the application when they would have been served with notice like a week ago. But you had the planning memo since the end of May. So why are you just asking now? We have all these people. You're telling me you're asking for a deferral to consult with the neighbors and planning?
Yes.
And come back with an application that's more in keeping?
Yes, we'll come back with reduced, balance.
Okay, well, there's 6 people who've taken time out of their day, luckily because of COVID, well, not luckily, but because of the virtual world, they're just on the phone at home or at their place of work. They didn't have to come all the way down to the Civic Center and spend time waiting here. But if you were going to ask for a deferral, asking for it at the last minute, and anyway, you're not going to build, it's at your peril because until you get approved, you can't go ahead and build something. So we'll hear what the other members have to say. So you're now asking that in light of the overwhelming opposition from the neighbors and from planning staff, you're asking for a deferral to consult and make changes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we have to hear from the neighbors that are here if they're okay, what their position, and then the committee will vote on that, whether it should be deferred or not, or heard today, and then heard today it might be refused. So let's just hear from, I see we have the neighbors, and we had some beautiful letters, Neil Boulanger and Yao Yao at 34 and 30 Vassar. I was quite impressed with their letters and how well researched they were. So let's hear from Neil Boulanger as to the position on the request for deferral from the applicant. Are you there, sir? Got anybody?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Neil Belanger at 30 VASSAR. My thing, it should be denied, and then if they want to come back and apply for some other house build, then come back again with a new plan.
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, I guess that would, have been to hardship. He could appeal to the LPAT, to TLAB. Usually if someone comes in this situation, they're faced with an adverse report from planning. In this case, I'm a little upset because he's had that letter since the end of May. He did just get the neighbors' letters very recently, so he is asking for a deferral, and it's at his peril. It's not like it's built and it has to be, until he gets approval, he's not building anything. So any delay, and he's looking now at a delay into October, staff will tell him now because of scheduling issues, this application would not be able to be brought back on until the fall. And I guess, I don't know if Mr. Wu is aware of that, but that is the case. So you're saying you think that he should be refused and have to come back with a fresh application, but that's sort of looked as a sort of a punitive. If he was up 4 times, this is his first time up. So
Right. And like, I don't even know how we got a house that was going to be 52.5% larger than, like, how did planning even tell him, like, even submit it? Like,
well, anyone can submit anything else. You can apply to build an 80-story building on your lot, and the planning department has to accept the application. So it's not
Yeah,
a
but
he's
don't
entitled
they-
to
don't
apply
they
for whatever he wants, but obviously he's heard loud and clear from the neighbors and from planning that what he proposed is not supportable, and hopefully he will come back and make some changes that you and the other neighbors can live with.
right. But I would think planning would say, you're out of the ballpark. Like, don't bother coming with this. But maybe they told him
Sir,
not,
I
and
agree
he
with
did.
you, but the planning department, and I've been doing this over 20 years, has to take in an application.
Okay, but they must warn the guy, like,
You would think, yeah, anyway.
you're coming in with a crazy number. Don't bother wasting your time.
Yeah. And again, sir, when looking at, we don't look at the percentages. I know you,
Right.
it's 52.5% larger, but we don't really look at percentages. So we look at impact. So that, but the applicant will have to go ahead and make hopefully changes that you and the other neighbors can live with. And we're going to have to hear from, the committee is going to decide. The committee could say, fine, we're hearing this today. It's up to the members here to decide, but he has requested it. So when that happens, we have to get your opinion on the issue of deferral.
You heard
It's
my
not like
opinion,
you've
and
come down here, at least, all of you haven't come down here during a snowstorm. You're at least sitting at home on virtual. So it's worse when people have to take time out of their day to come down here, park their cars.
I already did down there once before when this thing was delayed. There was notice up. This meeting was like a month ago, and I actually went down there because I had no indication it wasn't happening.
A month ago, because the city, everything was closed due to COVID. Was this on a
No, it was set up, and then they sent all the letters wrong. I got a letter. My neighbor's letter was on the back of my letter.
Okay.
And that was the second delay. There was
Staff
an
is
original. So I'd already been down to City Hall because I got nothing. As far as I knew, there was a sign posted. There was a meeting. I came down to City Hall and found out, okay, there is no meeting.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boulanger. And again, you wrote a very good letter. So let's hear from the next neighbor at 34. Yao Yao wrote another good letter. Most directly affected neighbor next door. Is the neighbor?
This is Yao Yao, and we are live at 34 VASSAR Drive, and we are a family of 4, and next door to the 30.
Sir, all I need is to see the applicant has asked for a deferral. I'm not asking you to make your presentation now, just to know if you're on the issue of the deferral. The applicant has been receiving these letters in the planning department memo. We're recommending refusal. He's asking to defer the application in order to make changes. Are you okay with that?
Can you see again? Can you repeat again?
Yes, the applicant does not want to have the application heard today. He wants to defer in order to make changes in view of the negative comments he's received from the planning department and from you and the other neighbors. He'd like to make changes and revise his application, and he won't be able to bring it on until October at the earliest.
Can you discuss with my wife? My wife is here. Yeah.
Sorry, he's because I'm not.
Hold on,
So
we
good
need your
afternoon.
name, please.
So my name is Yan Zhen. I'm a wife of Liao Yang.
Can you spell that?
Yan is Y-A-N. It's my first name.
Yep.
Z-H-E-N-G is my last name.
Thank you.
So he's not very good at English listening and speaking. So yeah, we agree that the applicant should go back to revise their proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but do we need to state the impact? Of
No,
the
not now.
proposal?
Not now. We're not dealing with the merits. He's asked for it to be deferred, which means there's no point discussing the impact because he plans on making changes in view of all the negative comments he received.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have the Clemens at 27 Vassar. If we could just hear from one of them. Peter or Catherine Clemens from 27 on the issue of deferral.
Okay, my name is.
Hello? Mr. or Mrs. Clemens?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay, I'm diagonally across the street, and I understand it will be deferred. My question is, will we be notified
Yes.
well in advance?
Of course, you will
And,
receive,
we-
there'll be re-notification setting out whatever the new variances are, just like this time. You would be notified and hopefully the applicant can, in the view of this, he's gonna have to contact the neighbors and show them the new plans he comes up with. That's what we're gonna try to impose, that he gets in touch with the neighbors before he reschedules, he shows the plans to the neighbors. Okay?
That's great. That sounds very good.
Okay, so, and it's
And
his,
will we
until he gets approval and he won't be here till October, he can't build anything.
Okay, thank you very much for taking our call. I'd also like to say that I understand why somebody would like to build a new house at that location because all these houses were built in 53, and I understand some of them look like they need a little uplift or
Yeah,
a change.
okay, we'll
or
deal
a
with this when it
renewal.
comes back, for sure.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
now we also have neighbors at 35 and 33 Lloyd Manor.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you. Is that Gaetano Mastrella?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sir,
I'm,
the applicant would like to defer. We'd just like to know your position on the deferral.
Sure, as long as they build within the bylaws, I'm okay with that.
Okay,
I
they're
just
not
think
necessarily going to do that, but they're going to make changes to their current application and it's going to be rescheduled and you'll be re-notified. I can't guarantee
very
he's not going to, I'm not guaranteeing he's going to build within the bylaw, but he certainly is going to have to make changes. He's seen loud and clear the letters of opposition and the planning report.
Well,
Okay,
I
so
just
hopefully
don't
he's going to
want- I
reduce
just-
his application.
I just don't want anybody invading my privacy.
Okay, well, you'll have a chance when he brings his application to weigh in at that time. But
Thanks
he's
very
going to
much.
make
I appreciate
changes. Okay. And last, we have Carol Walker, 33 Lloyd Manor.
Manor, Carol.
Hello.
Carol Walker here.
Yes.
I'm in favor of a deferral.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so committee members, we've heard from all the neighbors. We have the deferral request. We know the purpose of that. We need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move for deferral to enable the applicant to collaborate with the neighbors and the planning department.
Thank you. Second, Amishi?
All second.
Yes. You second that? Thank you. All in favor? The matter's been deferred. And contact Mr. Wu, contact staff when you're ready to bring it down. They'll have to reschedule. It's not going to be before October. And please, I suggest that you contact all of these neighbors when you have new plans to give them advance warning and perhaps get some input from them and perhaps speak to the planning department as to what they see as supportable on this lot. Thank you. Okay, let's call 20 again. Is the agent shown up for 20, 18 30th Street?
It's the owner, I believe, Gus.
Okay, because we had Roland Rom Kalthoff showing as the agent, but we now have, you're saying we now have the
Well,
owner on the line?
Roland did not pre-register even though he was advised to, and neither did the owner. So we need Gus's full name.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Gus Scarlatakis.
and you're the property owner.
Yes, CEO for the development company that owns the property.
Oh, okay, it's a development
Okay,
company.
so for future cases, you are required to pre-register so that we know that you're participating. So how did you
Yes,
get
thank
the information for this hearing?
The Committee of Adjustment application technician forwarded me the link.
Okay, so you have to pre-register in the future, okay?
Yes, thank you.
So your agent at 317 Adelaide, is he is an employee or a partner of yours, or he's an outside consultant?
Outside consultant.
Okay, so he has not appeared, he has not pre-registered, so you're going to be presenting, I take it, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we also have present on this application. So your agent was asking for a deferral. Are you looking for a deferral, or are you going to proceed today?
I'm here to formally request the deferral in person. I believe the letter was submitted recently, but the letter doesn't suffice, so I'm here to try to help.
Okay, so because planning is recommending a refusal, and Long Branch is opposed. The Long Branch people are here. Yeah, this is for a pair of the severance, 6.7 frontage, whereas 10.5 is required. I have a note here. So you're asking now to have this deferred. With purpose of deferral?
There was some deadline issues with respect to uploading presentation material to the meeting that occurred, as well as a generous amount of support letters from neighbors in the vicinity. Actual landowners came in, not within the time deadline, as noted in the letter, which I'm not sure if the committee panel has access to the referral letter.
Anyway, January, we have the copy of the planning memo dated June 22nd, I believe, that recommends refusal, right? You're aware of that. That's so you're seeking to make changes, or it's just a question of uploading materials for your presentation? Are you looking to make changes given the planning report? Just wanted to know the purpose of the deferral request.
Changes are definitely possible. I'm not privy to that direction as of yet.
Okay. So in other words, you have the report. It does state that in the planning department's opinion, it wouldn't be in keeping with size and configuration of the existing lots in the immediate block, and underside lots and construction of two semis that don't respect and reinforce the physical character. So you can decide to make changes or not, but you're asking to have it deferred at this point.
Yes, please. Given the technical nature of the presentation being unable to be uploaded, that's a critical piece.
Okay.
I apologize.
Sir, I don't know if you've been listening to the last application, but I was advising the last applicant who was looking for a deferral that you wouldn't be able to be rescheduled till the fall.
That's unfortunate, but acceptable under the circumstances.
Yep. Okay.
Well, considering this application was submitted November 26th of last year, I would think the applicant would have had plenty of time to submit any letters of support or material that they had. And they would have been advised of planning comment before we rescheduled them for a hearing during the current situation. This is our 6th deferral today, and it's taking away spots from people that would have liked to have a decision and proceed. So it's not going to be rescheduled for a while.
Okay. And perhaps we can make a note that there's been, it's funny, it doesn't show up that this is a matter that was previously deferred on our results sheet. But
It wasn't, it was one of the canceled hearings at the beginning of
okay, but if
COVID.
there's been that many deferrals, perhaps it should be preemptory the next time that it's going to be held the next time. Especially in situations where you have people coming down appearing in person, even by taking time out of their day. We have the Long Branch people who have been waiting on hold to deal with this, and now they're not going to, matter's going to be deferred. We better ask them, I guess. We have to ask them on their position on the deferral. So let's do that. Is Judy Gibson there?
Yes, I'm here.
So between Judy, you, and Ron Jameson, on the behalf of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, we need to know your formal position on the deferral request.
The applicant is saying they want to make changes, then we won't object if they want to make changes.
Yeah, he originally said it was to be able to upload presentation materials, and then I'm the one who suggested, in light of the opposition from planning, whether he would also include that as the purpose of the deferral, and he was, I guess, non-committal, as you heard. But in any event, he wants a deferral, so, and it's at his hardship, because he won't be able to get on until the fall at the earliest. Which means nothing's going to be built for a further period of time. So it's at his peril to defer it. And again, no, you tell me your position on the deferral and put it before the members. But at least you didn't have to drive down here. So Ms. Gibson, your position on the deferral for the record?
Can you hear me now?
Now I can, yep.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'm on my phone. Let me just, okay. So our position on the deferral is that if he is prepared to make changes to that would satisfy the planning department, then we're fine with the deferral.
Okay.
Currently, the planning department with the current application is recommending refusal, and we support refusal.
Yeah, he's aware of that, so that's why. Hopefully, he'll take that as a good indication that he better make changes and refer to that planning report. Thank you. Okay, committee members. So you've heard what's transpired on the motion on the issue of the request for deferral from the agent. 11th hour request.
We still have Ron Jameson, I think.
They're from the Long Branch. All I wanted was one person from Long Branch. We have to,
okay.
Unless he has something. Mr. Jameson, or you agree with your vice chair's position? I didn't think we needed a separate request from you. Anyway, let's take it. We already heard from Judy Gibson in terms of her position. Mr. Jameson, would you concur with that?
I would concur if I were unmuted.
I couldn't hear what you said, sir. Sir, would you like to repeat what you just said? I couldn't hear what you said.
Can you please stop muting yourself? We do that for you. Can you just let the chair know what your position is?
Yes, I support what Judy has said. I think this should be deferred and for the reason of revising the plan.
I think I heard him. He agrees with Judy. So, on the issue of deferral, committee members?
I would suggest to the applicant that they use this time constructively. If they're just seeking a deferral to upload material, I'm prepared to make a decision right now.
Okay, so. Sorry, applicant?
Yes, hello.
Can you please respond to Mr. Palmer's position? He's saying if the purpose of the deferral is not specifically to make revisions in light of the opposition and the planning department report, he's prepared to deal with it today if it was just to upload material. He wants to see, and I think we all do, and if you are reading between the lines of the planning report, that you use this period of a deferral till at least the fall to make changes to this application.
Yes, positive changes will be made. This is the first deferral for this application. It is within 4 business days. We recently received a letter from the LBNA just about 4 or 5 business days ago, as well forestry report only 4 or 5 business days ago. As well, we will improve the application and hope to have a productive use of time at the very next opportunity.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, committee members?
Okay, I'll move for deferral to allow the applicant to make constructive changes to their application.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Matter is deferred. Thank you. Okay, the next application is item number 21. 70 Regent Street, and we have registered as speakers, Franco Romano, agent, and the neighbor at 66, Ira Ramos. And this is an application to legalize and maintain the existing detached garage in the rear yard. There are 2 variances. There's an order to comply. June 28th, 2018, planning recommended refusal. Planning is now okay. I believe they've changed the dimensions and they want it to be built in substantially in accordance with the elevation plans. So, and they go through in their memo explaining the changes since 2018 application, which was deferred, and outlines the deficiencies. So, Mr. Romano.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So I've just outlined slightly your what's before us here. We have planning, I think, has outlined what happened in one of their reports, the most recent one. So would you like to just briefly walk us through what's this application?
Yes, in terms of the 2018 application, that 2018 application actually proposed a substantially different site development. It actually proposed a garage of over 122 square meters, a lot coverage of 24%, and a number of other variances, including side yards. So this application that's before this panel is completely different. What is before this panel today is to maintain the existing garage, and the existing garage has been in place for many, many years. I have some supporting material, and I'm not sure if you're able to bring it up on the screen, but I had submitted it on July 23rd, and there are 3 slides attached to those supporting material. And if you look at the 3rd slide, at the bottom of the page, 2009, you'll see that previous owners have utilized this property in different manners. The garage has always been there. 2012, you'll see the garage and the house. 2015, you'll see the garage, a bunch of other things in the backyard, and the house. In slide number 2, you'll see the most current air photo, but still not the most current use of the garage. This is somebody else's use of that area. So that garage and its perimeter has always been there. What you'll also see on this slide 2 is the laneway itself. The laneway is
Mr. Romano, I'm following along on my package. I assume the other members are also. It's not up on the screen, but these are the photos attached to your letter, or to not your letter.
My supporting material.
Okay. Because I'm seeing also some of the neighbors have also attached pictures to their letters. So I see yours. I now have your supporting materials.
It's
slide
the 3
1
slides,
and slide 2.
right?
Sorry?
Franco,
3
it's the
slides,
3 slides, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
it's up now.
Yeah.
We got it up now. Thank you.
So slide number 2 shows the most current air photo that I have access to is 2018. It is not the current owner. and it is not the current condition. But it does show that in 2018, the backyard was used for various things, and that existing garage was always there. So the perimeter of the garage has not changed. What this current owner did is basically repair the roof, and in repairing the roof, he just built over top of it by adding 35 to 41 centimeters trusses and roof cladding.
So
it's
he
about
made it like a
14
flat
to
roof?
16
He made it flat,
It's a
right?
It's a flat roof.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that he did is he refaced the front of the building. The front of it is facing north, and that's where the garage door is with brick veneer. The rest of the perimeter of the building is block, and that is consistent with what we see along the laneway in my photographs on slide 2. What you'll also see in the laneway is that there are a variety of garage types, 1, 2 stories, shallow roof, peaked roof, rooftop amenity space on some of these buildings. We'll see that the range and percentages of the coverage just for the garages themselves range from 2% to 42%. Sizes are smaller or larger than what's proposed. 5.25 to 105 square meters. And 25% of those accessory structures are larger than what's being proposed. Now the proposal, if we go to slide number 1, you're going to see that the difference in height between what has always been there and what is proposed is represented by part of the flashing that's on that top of the roof there.
Yeah.
We'll see that in slide 1. And you can actually, if you look at the brick, you'll see that the brick veneer is even different mortar in between what was there and what was installed. So the order to comply actually exaggerates in my calculation quite a bit the addition in height and the size, the dimensions of the canopy that exists, but is part of the variance here.
Yeah, it looks a
So
lot cleaner and neater than it used to with this new cladding.
Yeah, and they're totally, like the dimensions of the order to comply, I could not reconcile the dimensions on that order to comply with what is actually on the property. The property is much smaller. So there is no change in use. The proposal is to have an ancillary structure with a canopy, and it is for storage of materials that are owned by the owner. And I'm sure we can walk through anybody's garage and we're going to find stuff that is residential, commercial, industrial. There's all kinds of things that people put in their garages, including vehicles. So the proposal is really no different than that. There is no impact on light. There is no impact on the access of the laneway because the perimeter of that structure has always been there. So there's no impact in that regard. Okay. So I outline the revised elevations that I had submitted on July 23rd were basically to reflect what is there now, because the elevations that the designer had originally submitted had some different materials. So I would submit that should the committee authorize the variances, we're happy with the staff condition, but that the condition be attached to the elevation plans that were submitted July 23rd and not the April 24th plans.
So I know, Mr. Romano, that 2 of the 4 opposition letters are from 2018. There are 2 current ones from this July. I see one of them makes mention about some kind of a cooling unit on top of the being disruptive, or is that a permitted use, or what's the story about these cooling units they mention?
There is no variance for mechanical. So the HVAC on top of the building is not a variance. So it's permitted. It's just like you're allowed to have utilities going to an accessory structure.
Sure. So Mr. Romano, these cooling units, it's to cool the garage or the house?
It's the garage. It's like well, I can speak personally. I have a garage. I have in-floor heating. This building has in-floor heating, and it has air conditioning as well. So that's.
Is that because it's being used as a workshop, or is to keep their cars cool? Like, why would the? Anyway, you're saying it's not a variance. So
it's for personal use year round. If it could help, I mean, I can get the owner to install privacy. I guess put it up as a privacy screen along the south edge, and that would mitigate any noise that might come from an HVAC unit. But that's really something that's permitted. I mean, it's permitted on a residential property right up to the side lot line.
Okay, because
So there's
like
really
now,
no
I
air-
guess that
and
you're going to
it's-
see
and it's-
more laneway housing. It's been an issue, but most people don't air condition their garages, so unless it's being used as a workshop type thing. Anyway, let's hear from the neighbor, and then we'll see if before we do that, can we see if any of the members have any questions for Mr. Romano before we hear from the neighbor? Okay, and the neighbors, with the letters we have are from, I think, the adjacent neighbor at 68, and I believe also from the neighbor at 66 is the one that's registered to speak. So they're one over. And we also have the letter from the neighbor next to them at 66. 70. We have a letter from 768, and we have an appearance. So is Ira Ramos there, please?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
It seems like I'm still
So
on
you're
mute,
Mrs.
on
Ramos?
my computer. Yes, I am.
Okay, and you live 2 doors away?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a letter from the people, your other neighbor at 68. Oh, no, this is 66. I have your letter with pictures. Thank you.
Yes.
And then we also have a letter from the people at 68 who live right next door.
Correct. And I'm sure I've been communicated with her through message, and she's streaming, but she didn't register she missed the deadline to register and be
Okay,
able
but
to
she
speak.
wrote a very, Emily and Andrew wrote a very, couple of page letter. Okay.
Correct. I would like to say, first of all, an air view from a most recent time, let's say 2019, will have been very, very helpful to see what exactly is that space used for now, because we could see that soft landscaping is totally missing. But most concerning is the use that is given actually to the garage. So you mentioned quite clearly about the cooling units on the roof of this garage. There are not to provide proper refrigeration to the garage, but to feed it and maintain cool freezer that was installed adjacent to the garage. So the main discussion is not exactly about the garage itself, and if it needs to be the minor variance accepted, but it's the usage that is that is given to that unit.
Okay, so as you know, 2 years ago, they had an application to make it a lot bigger. They're not doing that. They're keeping it the same size. He's explained, Mr. Romano, that they've changed the roof and they've clad it, but they haven't made it any bigger. But your concern is with respect to the use.
And actually, because
but the issue is, if you look at the notice, the notice is to maintain the existing garage. It talks about the height and the coverage. It doesn't talk about the use.
But they also mention about the percentage of the space that it takes compared to what's allowed for the dimensions of the unit.
You're allowed 10% lot coverage for an accessory building. They have 14. That's what they're asking for.
But if you consider the structure that is attached and connected to it, it surpasses the 14%.
Okay, so you're saying it's not the garage, but there's a structure that's a freezer, and that's what the cooling units are for, and that is new. You're saying that it wasn't there before. Do you know what they're using? Is it in association with the business? What are they keeping frozen or cool? You're saying it's not in the garage, it's outside the garage, like closer to the house?
It's attached to the garage.
On the inside?
Attached. Yes.
Like closer to the backyard?
The property.
Okay, do you know how big that structure is? And we have it what's it being used for?
It's a freezer.
Is it a freezer for their personal use, or they're running a business or something? Is it just their personal? They have a, you
I'm
don't know.
not outside all the time on the
Okay,
laneway to videotape activity, but
I
I've
see.
seen going through the laneway to my parking space, employees going with food in their hands, going through that garage.
Okay. So this is a
From
residential
a
property, though, correct?
bakery.
This is a
Yeah, from a
residential
bakery
property.
that is exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
from a
well,
bakery that is across the street on Rogers Road and Kill Street.
oh, it's the bakery. So they own the bakery business across the street?
Yes.
Okay, I see that. Yeah. Okay, so we'll perhaps have to hear from Mr. Romano, but what's before us is just the build form of that. There's no variance here to use it for commercial purposes, Madam Secretary Treasurer? Like what's before us here is just the build form of the garage. And I want to hear from, about from Mr. Romano if something else was built or he says it was the same size. The outside walk-in freezer fridge shown on the picture. So, okay, thank you for your concerns. We're going to hear back from Mr. Romano in response to that about the commercial use, but that's not showing as a variance, it's just the size of that. But I don't believe the order to comply doesn't have to do with that, does it? It has to do with the... Madam Secretary Treasurer, is there any more information you have on this application? It doesn't appear to be couched as an issue about a change in use or commercial use, or it's just the issue of the size of the build for of the garage, the 4% overage on the size. That's what's before us.
Correct.
And the order to comply is from November 29, 2019. Okay. Anyway, thank you, ma'am, for your comments. We have your letter. We have the other neighbor's letter. And now we're going to go back to Mr. Romano.
Thank you, sir. Sir, just to be clear, and it may have been while we were trying to go over my slides, the garage perimeter has always been there.
Yeah.
The garage, what's before this panel is the garage and the canopy or the lean-to that's beside it. So that's open on the three sides.
Yeah.
And that is what both of those present the 14%.
Okay.
So the 9% is the garage which is enclosed, and the 5% is the canopy or the lean-to which is open on three sides.
Okay, the canopy lean-to that's
against the
open on
building.
three sides, is there a commercial freezer underneath that? Like we've heard from the neighbor that they've added to the others. Sorry?
I don't know about a commercial freezer. There's material underneath the canopy. So the
material?
There is no commercial use.
Okay.
There is no structure underneath the canopy that forms part of a variance. It is the canopy that forms part of the variance.
Okay.
So anything can be put underneath that canopy or not or not under the canopy, because there is no landscaping variance, there is no commercial use, and there is no commercial variance associated with the two variances that are in front of this panel.
So you would disagree when the neighbor said that the commercial freezer was built was added to the garage on the side of the backyard, the interior of the garage?
I don't know I don't know of a commercial freezer. There is I guess a container of some sort underneath that canopy, but whether it's for personal use as a residential use, it's not a commercial use. It's a residential zoning category. Again,
so if they have a freezer there, it's for their personal use and not related to the bakery use that they somewhere else. Okay. Well, anyway,
it can only be anything on that lot can only be used for the residential purposes.
Okay.
That's what the property is zoned for. So I'm having I'd love to give an explanation for the two variances that are in front of you today and not for something that isn't before you today.
Okay.
I just don't want to cloud the merits of the application for two variances with things that are not proposed, not in front of this panel. And I think that that's part what some of the documentation from others have presented, both the notice of violation, which exaggerates the dimensions of what's in front of the what is actually being identified as zoning variances by the city zone examiner, and the usage of the property in the building. I mean, if somebody is using, I can go into my garage right now and I'm going to find stuff related in there to my land use planning profession. That doesn't make it a commercial use of the property. I am just putting something there for a certain period of time, then I'm going to put it in my car and I'm going to go away.
Okay, but you know, Mr. Romano, having materials inside your garage is a little different than in my view, respectfully, from what you're saying. I'm looking at paragraph 2 of the neighbor from 68's letter. It says, what's not shown on the elevations, covered concrete stoop. There's a large structure underneath the covering that is permanent as metal sides and seems to be attached to the garage itself with an entry door on one side. It appears to be a walk-in fridge freezer unit which connects through tubes and pipes to the cooling unit on the rooftop. As it appears to be physically attached to the garage, permitted size of the structure was further exceeded than what is represented on the plans. It says the structure occupies most of the space under the another overhang, or what you call a lean-to. And anyway, it's a different, if it's a use type thing, I guess they have their recourse to do whatever, but it is a residential property. So I hear what you say.
It's a residential property, residential usage. You can, you would also be allowed to have a freezer there. You could probably put
a freezer
more than 20 freezers in this backyard.
For your home use, but not for
backyard.
Not a large one to support a business. Anyway, committee members, any further questions either for Mr. Romano or for the neighbor at 66? Or is someone ready to make a motion?
We're just trying to pull up
the planning condition requesting substantially in accordance with the elevation plans. You're trying to find the other
We're
neighbor?
just trying to find the one photo and then maybe it can be explained better based on that.
I guess Mr. Romano's position is whatever it is, it's not a variance. Okay, so anyone have any questions while we were waiting for that, or?
So I think this is the photo, the best that we can see and what they're trying to refer to.
Yeah, they didn't trespass from them when they took it from their side, so. Okay, so any other questions, or are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm concerned about the potential tie-in of this structure with a commercial enterprise, but that's really beyond our purview today. We're dealing with the two variances regarding the built form, and I found them both to be minor in nature and in keeping with the other tests under the Planning Act. So I would recommend approval. Subject to the planning condition.
Thank you. You have a seconder for that?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Romano. Thank you, Ms. Ramos.
Thank you kindly. Enjoy your day.
Okay, our last item of the afternoon is one where we have a lot of speakers present, so good thing we left this one for last. just turned out that way. It's item number 22. 16 Atherton Crescent. It's to build a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are two variances. We have a planning report for information. We have lots of supporting material been provided here in our package. Planning is concluding in their report for information that they have no concerns. And we're just going to go through the speakers on this. We have an arborist report, we have plans, we have lots of supporting material, and lots of correspondence, a lot of planning reports. Forestry is looking for urban forestry conditions 2 and 3. This matter was deferred from October 24, 2019. And like I said, there's a lot of opposition, both, I guess, from the previous time. 13 letters of opposition, but they may not all be current. So in terms of the speaker list, I'm just going to go through it first. First of all, we have Pedro Pimental, the agent, who will ask for a presentation. And then we have a speakers list as follows. The first person will be Mario Christian, living at 18. The next speaker will be Jennifer Elizabeth Canarinas at 7 Atherton. Then we have Jennifer Barber at 13 Atherton. We have Christine Mercado, the chair of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. And then Judy Gibson of the Long Branch Association, one of them talking about trees, one of them talking about the merits. And last speaker will be Steve Vella. So welcome, everyone. And if we can first hear from Mr. Pimental. Mr. Pimental?
Okay, so, yes, it's me. Can you hear me properly?
Can you try speaking a little bit louder?
A little bit louder? Okay,
If
is
we
it
can
better
turn
now?
up the volume here. Or...
Hello?
Yes, sir.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Better?
so you basically have two variances. You have front exterior main wall height, which is very minimal, 0.14 of a meter. And then your major one is your floor space index, 0.35 permitted, you're at 0.42. So please explain to us why that's worthy of support. You've read the letters. You've seen the position of the planning department. That they've given us a report just for information, giving us all the history of this matter. So the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes to let us know what your application, why it's worthy of support.
So we have submitted a few supporting documents. Some of them are pictures of the neighborhood with a map showing the diversity of the area and how the new houses have been built in this area. So I'll start by saying, so the reason why we had this deferred was because the owner had his parents, one of the parents passed away, so we had to defer.
Sir, can you please, I'm having a lot of trouble listening to you because it's very low. Either can we turn up staff here the volume, or is it at max and he has to just speak a little louder, a little clearer into the microphone? Because I'm having a lot of trouble following what you're saying because it's very muffled. So,
okay, is it better now?
A little.
You have to speak directly into whatever device you're using. If you're using a laptop, you pretty much have to have your face right in front of the speakers.
Okay, I'll try to do better now. Is it better now?
A little bit.
Hello?
Yeah, just try to speak loudly, please.
Okay, so basically what I would like to say is that the documents that we have submitted show that first of all we revised the proposal from the meeting of October by decreasing the side yard setback on each side of the house in the back. Do you hear me properly or no? Hello?
Yep.
Is it better now?
A little bit. Try to speak a little bit louder, sir. Because you're talking on your laptop and it's not like speaking into a phone, you have to bring it really close to you or you have to speak really loud.
Yes.
Because I want to be able to hear you,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so I'll try to be brief since it's difficult to hear
No,
me.
that's okay.
So,
It's important we hear what you have to say because there's 6 other people who are going to speak against you. You know?
okay.
So we want to hear your
So-
position.
So basically, what our proposal was, we made changes in the backyard of this house in order to compensate for the tree protection plan prepared by our arborist. There was a revised plan submitted in March this year that we allowed to have a better tree protection for the 2 trees in the back. So that's one item that I would like to bring it over. Second one, the FSI, which is one of the variances. It is quite in keeping with the area. We submitted a list of over 30 different committee of adjustment approvals in the area.
In the area? Okay, because I see you reduced it from 0.43 to 0.42, and planning department points that
Yes.
out. Not a big difference,
we have-
but you did reduce it by 1 point.
By 1 point. And the
Yes.
letter that I submitted, which is part of the submission, shows over 30 applications that got approved in the last 5-10 years. The FSI from 0.51 to even 0.70. And I've shown pictures of the neighborhood, some larger lots, some smaller lots, but FSI over 0.5. The reason for the deferral from the last meeting was the planning department didn't have a chance to look at the design guidelines that we had submitted from the Long Branch neighborhood. And after talking with the planner, she concluded that we followed the design guidelines. I could go over the number of pages, but every single item was following the design guideline. The house is only 3,200 square feet. It's not a large house. It's a typical to the area. And I think for now I can just stop now because maybe I have to answer some of the questions from the neighbors.
Okay, sir, so we're going to hear from the speakers now, so please listen because you're going to be asked to respond to what they have to say. Okay? Mr. Pimentel?
Yes, yes.
Pimentel? Yeah, we're going to hear from the neighbors now and the Long Branch people. So please listen to what they have to say. They've written letters, but listen to what they have. You'll have a chance to respond to their concerns. Okay?
Thank you.
So this first speaker, and if you could please limit since there's 6 speakers, I would ask that everyone limit their remarks to 3 minutes to try to keep it, since we don't normally have 6 speakers on an application. Do the best you can do. Number 1 is Mario Christian Leverado at 18 Atherton, right next door.
Hi there.
Good
Can you hear
morning.
me?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good morning. So my name is Mario Christian Leverado. My wife, Nicole, and I reside at 18 Atherton Crescent, and I'm the direct neighbor to 16 Atherton. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to speak today. I'd like to start off firstly by saying that I'm not opposed to the development of our neighborhood, and I genuinely look forward to having the lot next door renovated and occupied. But I cannot in right conscience support the plans that have been put forward by this development company, and I don't support the need for the FSI variance, and I vehemently oppose the application to enter the 2 silver maples, most especially the very large mature silver maple in my backyard. That's the reason why we purchased my home. The plans for development by Pedro Pimentel Architects as proposed will cause irreparable damage to this large mature maple in my backyard. Less damage, but still some to the front maple. And I've submitted to you 2 independent and unbiased arborist reports by Central Tree that outline this finding. And these findings are also corroborated with urban forestry and has a letter of support written by Mark Grimes' office. The first report that I had done by Central Tree was completed in October. The report clearly states that the plans submitted not only grossly underrepresent the canopy and the root system of both trees as they exist, but the size of the proposed building would cause irreparable damage to the large maple on my property. I know Pedro Pimentel is saying that the size is not that crazy, but in this certain circumstance, it will do damage to very large, very important trees. So they sent in an arborist report, as he said, done by Sun Arts. I read that report and I was very concerned to see that there were serious discrepancies with this report and the original report done by Central Tree. Central Tree therefore did a subsequent report review, and that review came back with a litany of concerning and conflicting information. So the developer inferred that the tree is mature state and near the end of its life, yet they're only providing 23% encroachment. The independent assessment by Central Tree, however, stated that this tree, although mature, is very much healthy and expected to thrive if left undisturbed. And it's clear the developer has no interest in maintaining a level of care for this tree, as they have supplied an application to damage it. This tree will not survive any type of damage. In Irvine Forestry's report, it's outlined the approval of this request variance may result in the construction that requires the removal of the following healthy bylaw protected trees and the permanent loss of viable planting space. Also, large silver maple in the back it's my tree. It's not a shared tree. This isn't a public tree that the city owns, that someone else will be financially responsible for. So when the developers are done with this development and long gone from the property, I will be left with the headache and heartbreak of having to deal with a half-dead tree, which not only is expensive, but devalues my property. Under the report prepared by the developer, the excavation limit for the new dwelling and the method of excavation for the dwelling have not been specified. A dry vac method has been mentioned within the assessment, but the arborist report does not go further into the procedure of the root exploration once the root have been explored. A grading plan has not been provided for review and not mentioned in the applications. And plus, on a personal note, this developer, who by the way I was very friendly with at first, and actually let him cut down 2 other shared maples with no permit, went ahead and pruned a massive chunk of this tree already, conveniently while I was away in Europe, after telling me initially they would not touch the tree at all. So I really don't trust much coming from that side of the aisle right now anyway. And aside from the trees, which is obviously a huge issue, this bill would leave me with a giant wall to look at on the south side of my house that will absolutely block out all sun, light, air. I have no garage on that side, and this huge structure not only will be an eyesore, but will eclipse my driveway and kill all the plants on the left side of my house, plants that are part of a garden my wife takes great pride in. Safe to say, given the obvious impact this current bill would have on my home, my mature tree, and the neighborhood in general, this application should not be approved as it is. The fact that the developer has not provided any valid reason whatsoever to receive a variance or build such a large home while endangering trees around it is proposed something that would irreparably damage 2 long-standing and mature trees. And this is corroborated by forestry and the independent arborist. And obviously has caused an uproar with a number of neighbors for other reasons. I trust the decision will be simple to deny any variance. And as this developer, we asked this developer and architect to redesign a home that can be built on the existing footprint and driveway, which is plenty of space still, but at the very least adhere to the existing zoning bylaws. This circumstance is the exact reason why they exist. And that is all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker before we move on to the next speaker? Okay. So the next speaker is Jennifer Barber at 13 Atherton Crescent, across the street.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Barber, and I live at 13 Atherton, which is right across the street from the proposed the property in question. So I'm joining to the meeting today to register my strong objection to the proposal of 16 Atherton Crescent.
Yeah.
I've lived on Atherton Crescent with my family for 20 years. Our street is a small street with many mature trees, as you've heard already. Modest-sized homes ranging from 1 to 1.5-story bungalows and 2-story brick homes. As Mario mentioned, the mature trees are a distinct feature of our street and add to the character of Atherton. From what I can see of the proposed plans of 16 Atherton Crescent, the requested floor space index is significantly out of character for our street. It's significantly larger than any other home on our street. As you may know, Atherton is a very small street. We only have 13 houses on the street. 10 of these addresses on the street have lots of this with the same size lot frontage, and out of these 10 addresses, 9 of them have the same lot depth or are deeper than 16 Atherton Crescent. So when you compare of those 9 addresses, the smallest square footage is 885 square feet, so quite small, and the largest is 2,600. So the proposed 3,100 square foot home is significantly larger than any other house on the street. So that's why I'm quite shocked that the proposed, dropping it by 0.1 is not going to make any difference whatsoever. And, it's completely out of character with the rest of the neighborhood. We will look directly onto this massive house. From what I can tell of the picture, it looks like a large double garage. No other houses on our street have a double garage. They're all single garages, which are either behind the front wall of the house or detached garage behind at the end of the driveway in the back. And so this would be very different than anything else on the street. It would be significantly vary in terms of the look on our street. So, in studying this proposal, I don't think that the 0.35 is out of, as Mario mentioned, it still would allow for a generous house on the street. So I would request that you refuse this application because it does not respect or reinforce the character of the street.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jennifer Barber before we go on to the next speaker? Okay, the next speaker, I think I got you a little out of order, is Elizabeth Canrinas of Set 7 Atherton.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yes, my name is Liz Canrinas. I live at 7 Atherton Crescent. It's just down the street and across from the house in question. I live with my husband and 3 children, and I am also here today to object to the proposal at 16 Atherton. I also have lived on Atherton, or we have lived here for 20 years, and agree with Ms. Barber that it is a small, short street, well-treed, with modest houses. We object to the proposal because it is much bigger than anything else on the street. The requested FSI is for no purpose. In addition, recent actions by the applicant indicate that the property is on the market and he is not committed to building. Therefore, the reason for the variances should not even exist. I have reviewed the application submitted to the COA that's also posted on the website. And on page 4, there's a section titled Sworn Declaration. And in that section, the agent is under obligation that the information contained in the application and the information contained in the documents that accompany this application are true. So that was signed August 9th of 2019. On page 2 of the application, the applicant is required to state why it is not possible to comply to the bylaw. And under the sworn declaration, the applicant stated the owners need 4 bedrooms on the 2nd floor due to the family size. So since this sworn declaration was made, the application was deferred to give the applicant time to address the neighbor's concerns. Today, the application before you is exactly the same. The impact to trees has not been resolved to the next door neighbor's satisfaction, and the reduction in FSI is negligible and still wildly out of scale with the adjacent properties and our street. And now the reason for this FSI variance really no longer exists because all indicators are that the property is being sold.
I
June
see.
6th, sorry?
No, I see. They were saying they need 4 bedrooms, but there's no family there yet because they're going to sell.
Correct.
So you're saying, yeah. Also note that they did make one. You said they didn't change. They did go down from 43 to 42% coverage.
Right.
But as you
Right,
say,
so-
negligible.
Negligible. Just personally, on June 6th, I had approached the owner about renting the property. My parents, elderly parents, were looking for a short-term rental while they waited to get into their home in Whitby that wasn't open for them due to COVID. So I was just looking in my area to see if I could house them. At first the owner was amicable, and then the next day stated no, and had also told my
Anyway,
realtor that.
that's really not here nor there.
Okay, just telling you where I
Yeah,
found out the
okay.
information. So that's why we found out that the house was up for sale. We've noted activity in front of the house, people going in and out. It was actually listed on MLS on July 17th and then taken off a week later. So just in looking back at this declaration, the reason for the variance was to accommodate the needs of a family that no longer is interested in building. It's unfortunate, as it is possible to maintain all the trees on the neighboring properties just by using the existing footprint of the original home. This strategy was used at 14 Atherton. All the trees were maintained, including the beautiful elm on the north lot line. And if maintaining the footprint and preserving all the trees at 14 Atherton can be done, none of us objected to that build. So all recent actions show that he's selling the property with plans. So under a new owner, the concerns for the trees and the FSI will still exist, and the new owner could simply apply again for different variances, but the bylaw minimum attached is always 0.42. So we feel that the applicant is seriously looking at selling this property, and the original reason for the FSI and height variance no longer exists.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Elizabeth Canderinis before we go on to the next speaker? So you're saying, and I think someone else raised it, basically in these two trees could be saved if they used the original footprint of the existing home, and what you said that was done at the next door property at 14.
Right.
Okay, and you said this was, and the other valid point you said was this was adjourned to make changes, and they basically took off 0.1 of coverage, which I guess is a change. Right. Okay, so the next speaker is Christine Mercado, the chair of the Long Branch Association.
Hello, this is Christine. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I am the chair of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, but I also live at 11 Atherton. I'm actually right across the street, across the street from this application. I live beside Miss Barber. And I also object to this application, and I'm going to speak to the prevailing FSI, the broader neighborhood.
Yep.
I do disagree with the agent's interpretation of Long Branch. As you know, Long Branch Neighborhood Association does deal with data and what is exactly on ground. So what I did was that I used the data for the broader neighborhood and the policy 4.1.5 and how the OP policy actually delineates a neighborhood. So what I did was that I picked out it prioritizes the street for the adjacent properties, the street, the block, and then the broader neighborhood. And it also delineates it using other features like zoning, a demarcation of something that would break up the neighborhood like Lakeshore, and also lot configuration and size. So using that sort of criteria, I examined the street and the block. And if you look at the two blocks that butt up onto Atherton, that gives you a count of 52 properties. They're all the same zone and use, and 27 of them are comparable lot configuration. And there was only one property that was a 0.42, and that was 8227. And to give that a bit of context, that property went to the OMB twice for a lot severance that the neighborhood actually participated heavily in. And when it came back and they asked for, when it got refused twice, and then they came back with a 0.42 application and there were no trees on the lot, the exhausted neighbors figured that that was a win. So,
and that was a severed lot, right? That was a smaller lot, so it had a higher coverage.
Well,
what
no,
about the non-severed? Like,
no. Let me finish. Let me finish, because it was an attempt at a severance.
Yep.
The severance was denied twice, and then they asked for a larger coverage in one house.
I see.
But there was no tree impact.
Uh-huh.
So the neighborhood was not prepared to go back third time for an FSI variance, but there are letters of objection on file for that. So we knew that this would come back and bite us in the end.
Okay, so other than that 0.42, what's the typical on the street? And we've heard from neighbors it's a short street. We can see the location. What is a typical FSI on Atherton, smaller and in the
It's
larger
under-
context?
There's actually the largest one is next door at 0.35. Okay, when you're talking to comparable lots, and then you get down into 0.17. So yeah, exactly. So and that's comparable lots because there is a corner. 16 Atherton is actually a corner lot. So, but it was built on the footprint, as Ms. Karenas said. So there was no, when they built on the footprint and just stacked it, there was no tree concerns at that point. So we were concerned about the size, but you can't consider FSI without considering lot area. Like the two are integrated, the two are integrated. So I looked at also the broader neighborhood because there is in the policy, it does say that you can make considerations for things that occur in significant number in the neighborhood. So in looking at the broader neighborhood, I went over from 31st over to 23rd, Lake Shore down to Lake Ontario. And I threw out Lake Promenade South because those lots, they have TCRA issues and the FSI is weird.
Yeah.
So, so that ended up with 544 lots. So that's a lot. So it's very broad. And 60% of them are 12 meters or larger for frontage. And out of those, I found 112 lots of the same configuration as 18 Atherton. So I was only able to find 2 more examples that were of a similar FSI. And that was 15 Elton. And in that particular application, they reduced the FSI of the house and they moved the entire house back. So forestry didn't object. So forestry objects to this application actually because of the tree issues. And then 11 Walnut. This is also on the applicant's list of comparables, and I actually disagree because it does have a different lot configuration. It's not as deep as 16 Atherton.
Right.
But it's the only other one that's even close. So when you look at taking the policy, because this is a difficult decision, because I can see, you said so in your preamble, you said it's a minor FSI variance. Well, when you look at the broader neighborhood, this is not the prevailing FSI. The prevailing FSI is the bylaw or lower.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, thank you, because you've gone over, so you can wrap up. Thank you for that presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're appearing out in Note Buzz as a concerned neighbor and as a chair of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. Thank you. So Judy Gibson is the next speaker, I guess, dealing with the trees from the Long Branch point of view. Judy Gibson?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So if I could ask staff to please pull up the letter that I submitted to this committee, and because I'm going to be referring to some of the data as I go through it, please. So thank you to the chair and the members of this committee for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Judy Gibson, and I'm the vice chair of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association, but also I chair the Tree Canopy Preservation and Enhancement Committee for the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. And the trees are a major concern in our neighborhood and why we were asked to form this committee and why I was asked to chair it. In the letter, and sorry, that's not the right letter, that's Christine's letter. There's another letter in here, and I know they're trying to find it. You'll see that there's data that the city
July
has released
23rd.
just in January 2020, which looked at the tree canopy coverage and the impact on the, this is still not the right letter. This is the one from Christine. If we could
July
pull up the
23rd
other
letter with the
that's,
tree canopy?
this is it. Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yep.
So if you could just leave it right there for a moment. You'll see what we've done is we've pulled out from this data that the city released in January, the tree canopy coverage change from 2009 to 2018. And this report breaks it down by a neighborhood basis. So what you're seeing on this page here is the tree canopy change for the neighborhoods which are in Ward 3. And you can see Long Branch has been hit the hardest of all of Ward 3. Our canopy was 26.5% in 2009, and now it's down to 15%. So that's over a 43% reduction in canopy. And if you can please go to page 5 of this letter that I submitted, you'll see that we've pulled out all of the neighborhoods that are in the Etobicoke York Committee of Adjustments jurisdiction. And you'll see that there is no other neighborhood that has had as bad of an impact on the loss of trees. If you just look at it, we're at 15%. You'll see all the other neighborhoods in Etobicoke York are either increasing or they're above it. The ones highlighted in green are above the 40% goal that the city has set to achieve. So when the city sets a goal to achieve 40%, and you're seeing a neighborhood such as Long Branch with a reduction of over 43%, we have to ask ourselves what's going on here.
Right.
The single
Okay.
most controllable factor in our neighborhood to grow the tree canopy is to manage the trees that are here and to preserve the healthy trees we have. And that's the situation in this particular one. Urban Forestry is recommending to deny this application, to deny the FSI. And the reason being is the impact specifically on Mr. Christian's tree, the tree that's 133 centimeters in diameter, which is a very healthy, lovely specimen of a silver maple.
Yep.
If there's the minor test that this committee looks at, this one fails all of them. It's not minor to remove a neighbor's huge, beautiful, healthy tree. It's not minor to ignore the Toronto official plan's policies. Is it in keeping with the purpose and intent of the official plan? If you scroll up the previous 3 pages, I've listed the policies in the official plan that refers to that. And this application fails because it's not preserving plantable space and it's not preserving the existing trees. So it fails that particular test. These trees are valuable members of the Atherton Crescent and the Long Branch tree canopy. You've heard it's a key defining characteristics of our neighborhood. It's the reason why the neighbor bought, why many people stay in Long Branch, and we're losing our trees. So I would ask this committee to please, on October 2nd, 2019, City Council adopted an item to declare a climate emergency. And we are asking this committee to please protect our green infrastructure that we have. Toronto launched its first resilience strategy that integrates Toronto's major climate and environmental plans to advance the vision of a more resilient Toronto. And one of the goals of that resilience strategy under infrastructure is Toronto to be more resilient to climate change, and preserving the tree canopy we have to 40% is critical to achieving this. This application is asking for variances that are not minor. It will result in the loss of these trees. It fails the 4 tests. Forestry is asking for denial, and we would ask for denial as well. And if you just scroll up a little bit there in figure 2, you'll see the amount of tree canopy on this application that's at risk based on the arborist reports that have been submitted. That's the tree canopy that would be lost with this application.
Okay,
So
and
we would ask you to please deny this application.
Right, and these are these Applebee trees that are, and again, it's on the neighbor's property, which is a little different than if it's on your own property. But here it's on the neighbor property. It's a large heritage tree, and like I said, and the main thing is, we've heard. I want to hear the applicant back in response. We've heard from, I believe, from Christine, or maybe from Elizabeth Canrinis, that there was an alternative. If you build on the existing footprint, you can build, as in 14, you can build a home without losing these trees. Which, if there was no other way of doing it, you'd have a little more consideration for the applicant on that. So we have one more speaker registered, Steve Vella. I'm not sure what Steve's address or connection to this is. He's been registered as a new speaker. Mr. Vella?
Hello.
Hello,
how
sir.
are you?
Sir, your address, are you one of the neighbors?
Yes, I just live around the corner. I'm at 42 Ash Crescent.
42 Ash Crescent, okay.
Yes.
Okay, let
And
us
it's
know.
a-
Can you, I assume you've been following along. You're the last speaker, so could you let us know what your position is on this application?
If you can, I sent a letter.
And you can try to speak louder. I can barely hear you.
All right. I sent a letter in a few days ago that has some tables in it If you could pull that letter up, and I'd like to reference those.
Okay. 42 Ash, here it is.
Yep.
It's undated. So let me see if there's a date at the problem. Oh, you have some pictures.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a signature here? Oh, you're showing a whole bunch of developments.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yep. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Steve Vella. My family and I live at 42 Ash Crescent. It's a well-maintained 100-year-old home with one of the 3 Long Branch heritage trees. And we've lived there since 2002, and before that, 10 years on Alder Crescent, which is just around the corner, also in Long Branch. This letter is an objection to the proposal at 16 Atherton. I am pleased it is not a severance, but I echo the concern of urban forestry and Councillor Grimes for the mature trees that are going to be lost because of the development. The family to the south has a Siberian elm, and the family to the north at 18 Atherton has two beautiful silver maples. The trees that will be lost cannot be replaced in our children's lifetimes. The trees will be lost because of the destruction of their canopy and root system. The trees are identified on the plans, but no consideration has been made to create a tree protection zone. So until the developers learn to build around our large existing mature trees, Long Branch will never be able to support the city's goal of a 40% tree canopy, which Judy just mentioned. I also understand that the silver maples at 18 Atherton have heritage potential. They are the only silver twin maples located on the same property in Long Branch. And also 18 Atherton is remembered by local residents as the meeting place for veterans after the Great War. It was described as one of the only 2-story homes in the area and had the space to offer camaraderie and solace to the Long Branch veterans returning from the Great War. So originally known as the Great War Veterans Association, this small group and others like it were the grassroots of what we now know as the Royal Canadian Legion. The history of this property and the trees are known from the neighborhood memories. When the libraries are open and more accessible, we'll get more information and present that to the province for heritage tree status. Now, I've heard from developers and builders that it's okay to remove mature trees. Well, we're going to replace them. But as a society, we should not pretend that it's okay to destroy a mature tree because we're planting trees in their place. But planting 3 saplings that are 6 centimeters in diameter to replace a private tree, in this case 150 centimeters and 90 centimeters, and also the Siberian elm, doesn't even come close to actually replacing them. The money that the developers give to the city to plant the trees does not even ensure that they'll be planted in the same neighborhood. And even if it was, hundreds of trees have to be planted to replace one mature tree. More than likely, the tree will not survive because of poor soil conditions, lack of care, and pollution, and many of the newly planted trees are cracking because of the freeze-thaw of our winters. Many years ago, there were naturally a large number of saplings, and only the strongest have survived. These are the trees that will be destroyed because of this development. The strong that survived, are now being destroyed. We must protect these beautiful trees. And this is a picture of the lot. I think you might have already seen that, the 2 beautiful silver maples.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Long Branch is development. And one of the many examples of housing developments destroying trees is on 227th Street. The builder did not have permission to remove or a plan to protect the trees on the property or the trees on the property of the neighbor's house on Lake Prom. The builder dug the foundation so close to the neighbor's trees that they actually started to move. It was so dangerous that adjacent properties had to be evacuated until the trees could be removed safely. The developer did pay the city for the loss of the trees, but a few $1,000s does not replace the human value the trees give to a neighborhood.
Okay, sir, if you could please wrap up. I hear we're reading along with you in your letter, but if you can try to wrap up, please, because you're the 6th speaker here, and we still have to hear from the other. So I'm reading along with you, so I think you're almost at the end of your letter.
This is a picture of the house on 27th Street before and after.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see all the trees and the new, all you can see is roofs. There's no trees left. This is the next is a picture of the tree that was lost, the silver maple that was lost in front of 227th Street. And couple of pictures down,
Yeah.
you can see a beautiful home at
Okay,
9
Mr. Vella, I'm really
Street.
going to have to ask you to wrap up because you've gone over 5 minutes. We've had 6 speakers on
Oh,
this,
sorry.
and I'm
Forgive me.
reading along anyway. You basically read your letter, which I'm really reading along. So all we have left are pictures, which the members can sort of look at here. And these look like
Okay,
you know,
so just
maybe
one.
severance situations, but I can see these pictures. So if you could please wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, so on table 1, just below there, it shows the number of trees from 2008 to 2018 increased by 1 million, but the total leaf area decreased by 10,000 hectares. So we're planting a lot of small trees, but we're losing a lot of mature trees. So we have an opportunity today to protect 3 beautiful mature trees. And I hope that this is what the Committee of Adjustments will do today, is to protect those trees and save those trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, Mr. Vella, 927th Street, you said after development, that's when it shows a beautiful big knotted tree in front of a home. So
Yes.
what's the context of that? These are the homes
This
at
is what
927th
happens.
Street?
This is what has been happening in Long Branch, and this is why we have to protect the trees that we have today.
Right.
Unfortunately, the trees on this property were not protected, but we have an opportunity today to protect the trees on Atherton.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pimental, Mr. Pimental, so we've heard from 6 objectors, a couple of people from Long Branch and the adjacent neighbors across the street, next door. While they're concerned with your FSI and mainly with the loss of these 2 sort of Applebee trees on the neighbor's yard, which due to the way you're designing your property at 42% coverage, which they feel is excessive, those trees will be lost. So how do you respond to all of what's been said? If you need a little longer than 5 minutes, I'll give it to you since we've had 6 speakers.
Okay. Can
But
you
please
hear
go
me,
ahead.
properly? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Not very well. Can you try to speak a little louder or closer to the microphone?
Okay, can you hear me properly now?
That's better.
Okay, very good. So basically, what I would like to start with.
Sir, try not to crinkle paper because we're hearing that when you speak. Try not to crinkle the paper while you're speaking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it better now? Okay, thank you. So I'd like to start if we can pull up the submission of the revised tree preservation plan. It was done on March this year. Just the drawing. I will need to go through the specifics of that revised plan. Because I'd like to start by responding to Mario Christian, which is a neighbor. It's very nice to hear you again. We spoke about this several times. What I would like to bring to no, not that one. So it will be the forestry. So I'm sorry, the arborist report.
March 25th.
March 20 something. Yeah. So that's the one. Okay. If you can go to the last page, please, which shows the actually drawing. So I would like to bring the attention of the committees the fact that the reports from the arborist from Mario, sorry, just see the last page. Basically, it's a drawing. It's like to call T1, not.
This is your arborist or the neighbor's arborist? This report.
This is my arborist.
Your
yes.
arborist.
So
Okay. Yep.
Should have a drawing like a site plan. Yeah, I think it's on the last page, but
T1. T
T1.
protection hoarding. CT2.
No. It has to be T1, the drawing. So tree inventory.
Tree number T1.
Yeah, it has to be a drawing is a T1. Can you just go to the last page, please? Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, now we have it. Yeah, please. Thank you. So what I think what happened here is, I can respond to Mario, but I guess there was other speakers as well, neighbors, was the arborist failed to revise his comments, because we have revised considerably the back of this property, not only to set back the back of the house, like with another 2 feet, but also removing and relocating the basement walkout. As you can see on this drawing, the basement walkout is now in the middle of the house, when before was adjacent to the sidelines of the house. And if you can see the red line, this was done, actually the setback was according to the arborist's recommendation in order to save the tree. And I guess I would like to say this several times, because everyone is saying that we like to remove the tree. Well, if we want to remove the tree, why did we change the floor plan and relocate the basement walkout? So the purpose of these changes was to make sure that arborists will give us a report that we allowed us to keep the tree on both sides. So unfortunately, the arborist from Mr. Mario did not, revise his site plan, because his site plan is still the old one. So this is the new submission. It was already discussed with Max Dida, the manager of the urban forestry. The permit was submitted already to protect the tree and not to demolish, not to remove the tree, but to permit to injure as a typical submission. And that's what is my submission about the 2 trees in this backyard. I don't know if the members have any questions, or should I continue and then ask for questions?
So you're saying that this drawing shows that you're protecting the trees? I don't think anyone, I don't see that, and if that's.
If you see the red,
I don't see what change you made other than taking off 1%. I guess you moved the walkout, but I think from what we've seen from the other people that is, I don't think it's not clear to me that these trees are being protected, because we're being told that these trees, which have some significance, these Appleby maples, will be affected.
Yeah. So basically,
and you've had some time from the deferral to deal with this and to have this clarified.
No, but that's exactly what we did. So the arborist told us that we need to maintain a 4.2 meters. If you just zoom on the plan, you see there's a 4.2 meters dimension from the bottom of the tree to the protection of the roots. So we needed to keep that 4.2 meters in order to the tree to be maintained. I don't know if you can see that.
You got two major objections to your application, Mr. Pimentel. One is they feel that 40.42 is way too high for this particular lot, and as well as the impact that they're going to what you're proposing is going to destroy these 2 trees. So those are the 2 issues I think you're before us. Yes, exactly. And if you're trying to say, well, you look at this drawing, there's no problem with these trees, I'm not convinced by that, because I'm not an arborist, and we have competing arborist reports. We have urban forestry, the city's tree department, telling us something different. That's my problem. And then there's the issue of your second hurdle, which is the issue that if is 0.42 appropriate size for a new dwelling on this street. Those are your 2 major hurdles.
Yes.
So to move on and say, this drawing shows there's no problem, I'm not convinced. I don't know about the other members. Telling us that your guy forgot to make a change, or did you say something about your arborist forgot to change the notation or something?
No, it changed the tree protection plan. So this is different from what arborist from number 18, Mario.
And when was this? So when was this plan provided, and when was it submitted to the city?
March 25th,
Okay, so
2020.
since March, when it's converted, the city has not changed their position, or you haven't been able to convince them that based on this drawing and this report, or this,
No,
supplemental
I'm sorry,
report,
no.
that these trees are now preserved or protected.
No, I'm sorry. The reports we're getting from the neighbor is that is according to the old site plan, not to this one. So this is what I'm trying to explain, that he never addressed this new plan with the new protection plan according to the reduction of the footprint of the house and the relocation of the walkout.
So if they weren't commenting on the right plan since March, why didn't you point that out to urban forestry or to the planning department and to committee of adjustment staff?
Yes, we did that. We all did that. We all made that submission. So,
But
I
the
think
plans we have on file are dated March 17th for your proposal. Your arborist report was submitted March 25th. If you know there was a discrepancy, you should not have submitted a arborist report that didn't match your proposed plans, because your plans haven't changed since March.
No, those are according to our plans. Those are the same plans.
Well, then the notations on the arborist report should be correct.
I'm not sure what notations. So we changed our plan. We submitted, and the arborist report came 7 days after. So I'm not sure exactly what is the question.
Anyway, Mr. Pimentel, if you can please continue. We're already gone over for
Yes.
6.5
Okay,
minutes. If
so-
you can please wrap up in the next 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, so I mean, I can go over regarding the character of the street. We submitted streetscape drawing, which I would like you, if you can submit it as well. That was part of the initial submission of the neighborhood guidelines.
Sir, we've heard from the neighbors that 0.42 is excessive and not supportable. So you have to tell us why it should be. Can you show
Well,
me
I would
examples
like
of other
to
new homes at
show- I would like
0.42?
to show the street. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. Basically, I would like to show the streetscape of these two houses next door. So,
Okay.
And the house next door, which is number 14.
Mhm.
It's a two-story house with the same volume as ours. So this is quite important to see that the streetscape did not change according to this new home.
Is it
And the
0.42?
size of
Because actually interesting you say that, because one of the neighbors, Mrs. Canrinas, mentioned that 14 they were able to save the trees because they used the existing footprint. So what is the FSI?
I'm not sure, I'm not
What
sure
is the
about
coverage for unit number 14?
No, 14 was approved by the committee with 0.51 FSI.
0.51.
0.51 back in September 2017. So I'm not sure when they say
Mhm.
there's no other houses on the street that have been approved with the same or different FSI. When the house next door had approved in 2017 for 0.51 and 3 more variances for height, for setbacks, and side yards, and so we only have 2 variances.
Was that an existing lot or was that a severance? That was just one lot. It wasn't severed. It was just one lot?
Construct the second, was to build a second floor addition to the existing house.
Right. So they built it on top of the existing house.
I don't know the details of this, but basically this was approved as 0.51 FSI back in 2017. So when they say that there was nothing else approved, next door we already have one approved with 0.51.
But it wasn't a new build. You're saying it was a top-up. You just told me it was a top-up, and the neighbor said it was a top-up, and that's why it didn't go far back and didn't affect the boundary trees.
So it was for a second-story addition over the existing dwelling. And yes, the floor space index was 0.51, but the floor area was 233 square meters.
Okay.
Whereas this is 292.
Okay. So it's a different size lot. Okay. Okay, Mr. Pimentel, would you like to wrap up, please? Because we're at 9
So
minutes.
basically, I think my position is the area is a very diversified neighborhood. You can see with pictures that I submitted. There are larger lots, smaller lots. we would like to maintain the trees. We're not intention to remove any trees, and we already applied for those permits. And we are in keeping with the character of the area and with the neighborhood, and we think that the application is minor and complies with the 4 tasks of the Planning Act.
And your position is that based on your arborist report, these 2 trees are going to be saved?
Yes.
Which is not what everybody else is saying.
Because I think they're based on the old plan. I'm sorry, but I think.
Committee members, any follow-up questions for Mr. Pimentel or the neighbors? Or all of the 6 other speakers? Or are we ready to bring it into committee and make a decision? No questions? Ms. McCluskey, any questions? No? Questions? Okay. Okay, we're going to take the matter into committee. Thank you, Mr. Pimentel, and thank you to all the neighbors who've spent your time dealing with this matter, and we'll take it in for a decision now.
I'm concerned that this was on for hearing, I think it was October, November, or something like that, and was deferred to allow for community consultation and consultation with community planning. And it looks like community planning is supportive or not objecting, but I'm not sure what changes were made to assist the community. And it's difficult when we see it came down from 0.43 to 0.42 where the changes were made. And we can't just look at numbers. We have to look at the context of an entire application. And to some of the neighbors, I really don't care if this person wants to sell the house. They want to put it up and sell it tomorrow. If they want to sell it right now, I really don't care. I have to look at appropriate development for a lot and what's going to be remaining there for the next 50 to 100 years. Not whether someone wants to flip the house. I really don't care. So we have to look at whether this is appropriate development. That's one of the 4 tests. So that's my comment for now. I'll let other members comment as well.
It's funny when you say comment because I'm just looking at the planning report, and the planning report, which we've seen some cases, normally they tell us whether they are in favor or they refuse it or that we should refuse it. In this case, this report, even though they conclude at the end that they confirm he's taken 1% off, they say that they're satisfied or the opinion the proposal meets the general intent. The official plan is minor and appropriate, but they don't say they're in support. They just give it for information, which is sort of puzzling to me. But we have, again, and they've raised it, we do have the tree issues and the issue of the 0.42 on a new build versus a top-up. So again, I echo with Mr. Palmer. It doesn't matter. We're building, when we make approvals here, we're doing it for the property, not for the person. It's because the property stays on. A new build now is going to last 50 to 100 years. There's the impact on the tree canopy, and that's what we have to deal with. We're not concerned if someone is flipping it or looking to make money or not looking to make money. We look at the impact and on the whether something is appropriate. So that's what we have to do here. We've heard next door, although they're at even a higher floor space index, the lot area was smaller, so it's distinguishable, and also it wasn't a new build, it was a top-up. So we've heard from some of the neighbors what they're suggesting is this applicant, if they topped up over the existing footprint rather than demolish and build a new home further back, that they could save the trees as they did at 14. So that's just my observation. I'm not making a motion because I like the members to make a motion, but that's just my assessment of what it has here. We do have a planning is not opposed, but there are the tree issues. And the issue is the issue of the applicant saying, well, these trees, we're dealing with it and they're looking at the wrong plan. I'm not convinced by that. Or if it is the case, then the applicant from March should have had enough time to have realized that and to have gone back to urban forestry and advised them they were looking at the wrong plan. So that's my input, and someone's ready to make a motion.
I'll just put a little bit more input in. The interesting thing about this proposal is that this house can be built within the existing improved building envelope. There's no rear yard setback issues, front yard setbacks, side yard issues. This house could be built. If this proposed house was 2,600 square feet, it could be built on this envelope.
Right.
So I'm concerned about the integrity and the protection of these old trees on one hand. On the other hand, I'm thinking the applicant could get a building permit for a 2,600 square foot house and still put the trees at risk. Is it just because he has to be here because he wants a 0.42 times FSI that brings the issue of the trees to the fore?
Yeah, there is no length or depth triggering this. It's unusual to see someone affecting a tree on someone else's property. It's either on their own property or it's a boundary tree. This one is exclusively, I understand, on 18's property, correct? So that's where it's a bit of a distinguishing factor there.
And we do have our professional, reliable urban forestry department who has not asked for refusal, as they're wont to do on many occasions, as we know. They have imposed 2 conditions. And I guess the question for us is, are we comfortable with letting this go with those conditions? I'm not, I guess another point I wanted to make was, I'm not terribly concerned with the FSI. I think the house at 14 Atherton is very similar in massing scale to the one that's proposed here. And I've made this comment before. You know, comments on what is on a street right now, I know are very relevant to people that live there. But more importantly than what's there is what could be there per the zoning bylaw, without varying it. And the fact is, this house can accommodate a 2,600 square foot 2-story house, notwithstanding the fact that Atherton is predominantly bungalows and 1.5 story. It's not, you know, nothing is intended to be static. So.
Is this, okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for those comments. So we're still waiting for someone to make a motion. That's true. You know, sure, there's no side yards, there's no depth, there's no height. There's floor space index, and the issue is whether these trees are, in fact, the applicant is saying, well, the trees are fine, we have a new plan, but I'm not convinced of that. But the question is, should permission be granted to build a house with a floor space index of 0.42 on a new build in this instance, which will, as far as we're looking at it based on urban forestry, is going to affect these 2 very special trees on another party's property.
All right, I'm prepared to make a motion. Looking at the 4 tests, I'm not convinced that it's minor or it's appropriate development, so therefore it fails, and I'm prepared to refuse this application.
Okay,
so that's
thank
my
you. We have a
motion.
motion for refusal. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Ms. McClaskey? Okay. Let's vote on all in favor. Okay, the application is unanimously refused. Thank you, neighbors. Thank you,
Thank you.
Long Branch representatives, and thank you, applicant Mr. Pimentel. Thank you. And it is now 3:22. We don't have anything to close. Okay. So we stand adjourned. Thank you. Is it easier with the lights on? Because I feel like I'm about to fall asleep. Yeah.